Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo, set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 So life ain't easy, yo, I think there's a reason though. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. You always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they rot. Head full of flies, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. A flow, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
As you wake up in the morning, you want to find the latest, greatest information about criminal cases and have an intuitive conversation about the suspects associated with these cases. Head over to the Bullhorn Betty channel on YouTube. Get breaking news right here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Coffee Club. Enjoy your stay and enjoy your day.
Her saying that she was at a party, I never knew about that. When my grandkids say, I believe what they say. Just like, yes, I did call CPS October 31st of 2023. If CPS would have listened to me then and pulled these kids out, Janiyah would still be here and my grandkids wouldn't have went through the hell that they went through with Jasmine and her girlfriend Kiara.
We are learning about the case of Janiyah McMichael, and this is her grandmother. While earlier today on my YouTube channel, I got some details incorrect when it came to her grandmother here. However, throughout this phase, we will be correcting all misinformation or things that we understood incorrectly. I still maintain that many of the people in and around Janiyah's life knew of the alleged abuse and stood idly by, not assisting until it was too late. Janiyah was 13 years old when she disappeared. However, the specific time that she disappeared is unclear. Her family expresses an abrupt end in communication as late back as June 2024, while her mom maintains that she disappeared on August 11th, 2024, and reported her missing on August 12th. Janiyah lives in Gary, Indiana, which is riddled with drug and gang activity. I have counted at least 4 SA allegations related to Janiyah McMichael, and she's only 13 years old when she disappeared. She has recently turned 14.
I called because my grandkids told me that how they were being abused by Jasmine and Kiara, how they had to wake up early in the morning and stand up like 5, 6 in the morning, stand up military style with their hands behind their back. They only had 7 minutes to eat. All they could eat was sandwiches. When I got them, they couldn't eat really. The food that I was introducing that were all normal to eat, they had diarrhea for months. She only allowed them to drink water. That was it, not even flavored water, because she is in an abusive relationship and they're very controlling. And I have a recording that I am going to share with you from a prior relationship that Kiara was in, that this girl ended up losing her child and they gave her 4 years prison time and she did 2 years and lost her child because Kiara and her mom, they were abusing this child. And she said, when I was explaining everything that was going on, she said it was like deja vu for her. She was crying and she was scared because she said that's the same thing they did to her. So, you know, everybody's seen this abuse since day one. You see my shirt. This is all what I'm about. Find my granddaughter. That's what I'm about. Do I believe Jasmine and Kiara did something to my granddaughter? Yes, I do.
Are doing well. Thank you so much, Pamela. Pamela gifted 5 Bullhorn Betty memberships. So if you received your Bullhorn Betty membership, please don't forget to tell Pamela thank you. God bless you, Pamela. And for those that received your Bullhorn Betty membership, welcome to this crazy family we call the Coffee Club, i.e. the Insane Asylum. Grab your straitjacket and your padded broom. And thank you so much, Kendra, for the super sticker. God bless you. God bless you. Guys, it's nice to see you. As you guys saw the title of this show, and I was reviewing some things. You know, one of the key factors in any case that we cover is going back to the beginning and seeing what we missed. And although we didn't miss this, we've had discussions about it. I have a different perspective. A totally different perspective related to the statements that were made early on in this case. But before we do, I just wanted to say good morning. I'm not going to go through all of your names this morning specifically. That's why I showed you guys as we were coming in. For those that are just coming in, it's nice to see you. I'm Bullhorn Betty, and we're talking about the case of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He disappeared when he was 15 years old. I truly believe his disappearance was on February 25th, 2024, but he was reported missing around 6:33 in the morning on February 26th. And since then, this case is just a bizarre case with a lot of weird things that have happened while covering it. it's something that I just can't explain. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of statements that have been made that cause us great pause. Like, what? And so as I'm putting this timeline together, and we're getting to you know a point where this case, we need to go back to the beginning and find out what we missed. So it brings me to different creators' channels where I go there and I'm watching a bunch of stuff on their channel, and something just sticks out. We've heard it before, we've discussed it before, but somehow something just starts ringing in your head like this. Look at the timeline. And that is exactly what happened with this statement. I needed to look at the timeline and see where this statement was made, and what their behaviors were at the time that this stuff was known to the public. Because a lot of the information that we have about this case truly came from law enforcement, as well as the statements from mom, stepdad, and dad. We've learned a lot about Sebastian because of those three people. Whether you love them or hate them, at the end of the day, we've learned a lot about Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers from those three people. Most of our opinions, most of the things that we talk about are derived from statements made by one of those three people on both sides of the fence. So before we get too far into this, as you guys know, Sebastian has not yet been found. There's evidence of him going inside his home that evening. There's no evidence of him ever leaving. That's the issue I think everybody has. That's so perplexing. In many statements, the mom and stepfather state things like, we don't have any video to prove where he went. It's statements like that really kind of stand out to people like us, people that are entrenched in true crime, and people that have studied these specific cases for significant amount of times over and over and over again. Because you got to think, with every missing child case, we're looking at other cases of missing children. So, and we're constantly comparing one case to another case to another case to another case. So it's never about just learning about one child's case or one missing person child's case, or a missing person or a deceased person, whether they're a child or not. It's never just about their case. It's about all the other cases that are previewed in an effort to explain their case. So you're always talking about hundreds of cases that are being previewed, hundreds of interviews that are being previewed over a year's time. And that's what gives us this unique perspective when we come upon a case. We know at that point what's normal and abnormal, because we see parents at their absolute worst time in their life, and you are so deeply drawn in because of the emotional level and how your own heart breaks for that person. So when we hear these cases and we have that lack of emotion and passion and urgency from somebody that should have it, it really makes us kind of question a lot, because we as human beings understand that that kind of emotion is uncontrollable and inconsolable. So we always try to understand how in the world somebody could act this way. And where does that lead us? It leads us into looking into other avenues, looking at other people, looking at other stories to find out how those parents acted in that situation, listening to those past interrogations and interviews with news organizations with those, and really trying to compare apples to apples. And so this leads us down a lot of questions. And of course, there's a lot of people talking about the Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers case. And one of those people are organizations is Court TV. And another person that at least I highly respect and adore, Jennifer Coffindaffer, which is also has this Breaking the Case with Jennifer Coffindaffer here on YouTube. So I want to take a few moments and go over some statements because one of our audience members had a question. So I'm going to pose the question to you guys. We're going to listen to the statements made, and then we're going to have a brief discussion before we jump into the topic of conversation, which is, Chris tells the world that LE told him Sebastian is most likely not here and that it would be wise of people to search outside of the 10-mile radius north to northwest. And we'll get into the very verbatim statement made by Mr. Proudfoot later down, and then we're going to look at some information and have a more thorough discussion where I'll be reading chat and having a discussion directly with you guys. So just give me a few moments. Let me get this started so we can have this first discussion. So the email basically said, I hadn't seen this before to my knowledge. I don't know what was asked, but poor Seth is very frustrated in his comment. Jennifer Coffindaffer makes a statement in this interview regarding Sebastian. I'm now confused. Chris calls and reports Sebastian. Extremely detailed information given by dispatch, but Jen says Katie made the report. Who made the report for Chris or Katie? Jen also said something else about the video. You probably already saw this, but just in case you haven't. I did see this video, but I don't remember if we had discussed any discrepancies of like Katie making the call versus Chris making the call, because I think we've all had the understanding it was Chris that made the call. So my response was, excuse me, I'm drinking coffee. I don't know. It might have just been somebody misspeaking, which does happen. A lot of people don't realize it, but there's been several times that I meant to say Seth's name and I said Chris's name, or vice versa, or Sebastian's name when I meant to say Seth's name, or vice versa. And I don't even realize it, I don't realize it at the time I'm speaking, but realize it after I go back and preview the video or whatever. So it could be very well a misspeak, but you don't realize you do it until, you realize it. But that is possible. And also it might be that she may have some information that we don't know. But when I was answering this email, it made me think of something else. And it says, I still think there's something funny about what was said about the 911, and it wasn't really a 911 call. Sorry, I didn't realize this was up. It wasn't a 911 call. It was a non-emergency dispatch line. But listen to this, guys. Don't you find it funny that they volunteered that she was on three-way? I mean, I know we were asking questions, but when I keep going back and looking at the mob crew's picture of Katie 30 seconds before, or less than 30, I think it was like less than 10 seconds before the 911 call was made, and she was clearly in their community, it just really, really, really makes me question this whole 911 call and the volunteering of her being on three-way muted. It just seems so convenient. Like, when you look at that photo that the mob crew shows, because her explanation of it is that she needed Chris to call because she was so hysterical that she couldn't speak. And when you look at that photo of her 10 seconds before that call was made, she doesn't look this hysterical person that wouldn't have been able to speak. So, and then the other thing is you don't see a phone in her hand as if she's on three-way. But, with all these new cars, there is, they have hands-free. So would it have automatically picked up when she entered her car? It's very possible, and we don't want to speculate that it couldn't have happened. Like, she didn't need to physically, this day and age, you don't need to physically have your telephone in your hand. It doesn't mean that you're not on the phone. So, there is that. But let's watch this clip. Let's listen to it, and then we'll discuss just briefly, and then we'll get on to the topic of conversation.
Welcome back. This morning, we're shining the spotlight on the search for Sebastian Rogers and the last known video of him before he disappeared. Security cameras caught Sebastian eating dinner with his mother at a Texas roadhouse in Hendersonville, Tennessee, the day before he vanished. His mother was seen taking photos of him and then sending them to somebody. Now, looking at this video, it's kind of hard to believe he hasn't been seen since then. But that is the case. Sebastian vanished from his mother's home on February 26th. His father says he still has hope he'll be found.
The goal is still the same. Find Sebastian. He needs to be found and brought home to a home that loves him.
Sebastian's 16th birthday was last weekend, and police say that they're still actively investigating this case, and they're not deeming it a cold case as of now. I have a special guest I want to welcome onto the program now. You know her and love her, retired FBI.
And I have to say, you know what, Seth, I remember when I was there when he made those statements. I remember how emotional he was. He has been very emotional through this process. I don't know how he's kept it together so long. Honestly, I really just don't. But this has to be extremely difficult, and all he wants is his son found. He doesn't care about this circus. He doesn't care about anything. He just wants Sebastian's name out there and people not to forget about his son, because his son has not been found, dead or alive. And so that's what's so alarming about these statements made. Now, it's not just alarming about the statements made, but the behaviors after these alleged statements were made.
FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindeffer. She also, by the way, has her own brand new YouTube show called Break the Case. It is awesome. Be sure to check it out. Jennifer, good morning to you. You were one of the first people to follow this case. I love following you on Twitter, and I remember seeing you were doing the missing person tweets, as you always do, and have continued to follow every single development. Looking at this, as it is hard to not have emotion in it, because your heart just breaks for this family, this teenager. Where do you think the investigation is likely to go from here? Does it go anywhere?
Well, Julie, looking at this tape, and I've had it for so long, I just didn't release it until it was released by others. But essentially what I was looking for were the reactions of the mom, of course, Sebastian's actions. A couple of things I noticed is his eating style. I thought was very interesting. It was like he hadn't been fed in a week. I'm not saying he hadn't been fed in a week.
She brings up a lot of valid points, and I think we have discussed that as well. It seems, if we follow the case, if you guys are all following the case as closely as I have been following this case, there's a few things that you will know. You will know that it only appears that this young teenager that is a bottomless pit, allegedly, now that's if we believe all these statements, I've got questions, right? But we were told that the morning that you see here, earlier that day, he had a fun breakfast, which is spaghetti pancakes. And if you guys, I don't really know what it is, but I did Google it, y'all. And I saw that they looked almost like a funnel pancake type thing, That's what it appeared to be for me. Apparently he was excited about that. So excited that he wanted to brag to family. The next thing that we hear he eats is this alleged colossal popcorn. Why I say alleged is because, one, we never saw him eat it, or taking his mother's word for it. But two, when you look at BJ's, they don't have a colossal popcorn. They have a colossal cookie, and a large popcorn. So it's always given us, great pause whether he had that popcorn at all. We don't know. Nobody has ever corroborated. Nobody even in their own family has ever corroborated this popcorn. So, even if he had popcorn, that's really not a whole lot of food for a 15-year-old boy in a day. If you ask me, a sugar-filled breakfast and popcorn, I don't know if that's the proper diet for somebody with autism. And it's a valid question, because I didn't realize until I talked to the real Me Too that diet is extremely important with autism, that it helps regulate a lot of, I can't remember how she explained it to me. I'm not even going to try, because you guys know that up until this case, I was very, very ignorant about what autism is, right? So she explained how important, because we were talking about, I can't remember, we got on the conversation about gummy bears or something like that, and she was telling me how she makes them all natural. She has to make them natural for his diet, and I'm like, really? Why does he have to be on it? I was asking, why does he have to be on a diet for his autism? And she was explaining to me, the benefits of it, and how different their mood is when they don't have, a good healthy diet. And I'm not sure if spaghetti pancakes and popcorn really is, that healthy diet that is needed. So someone is going after everyone. Has everyone gone after retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer? We heard her. It's on video. Good morning, Betty. What? Someone is going after everyone. I don't know why this is so volatile. People are entitled to their opinions, but they're not entitled to club people over the head for their opinion, or turn their life upside down because they have an opinion. So I don't know what's going on with this world this day and age, but I'm not getting into that conversation just yet. There was talk last night about jammers being used on Linda Lane in the Idaho 4 case, just like cameras on Sebastian Street. Interesting. All right, let's get back to this, because I want to get moving. There's a couple statements in here that we need to hear.
I'm just saying the way he eats was very, aggressive. He was just constantly eating. What I also noticed from the mother was her staring around, looking around, almost like she was on surveillance for someone. In addition, she was on her phone such a large percentage of the time, seemingly not really engaged with Sebastian. These were just a couple of takeaways. Julie, I also looked at the people around. Was anybody watching them? And there's other film footage that I've personally viewed that might give some credence to somebody else watching them.
That's interesting. That's really interesting, Jen. And thank you for pointing that out, because as I'm watching it, and look, I'm not an investigator as you are. That was the first thing that jumped out, was her head's going every which way. She's sitting there with her son, and like you said, she's not engaged.
And I did want to pause here as well, because this really does go into, I know that there are some content creators that are still very unsettled about everything that happened at the Texas Roadhouse. And I completely understand, why, because let's face it, when we're looking with a skeptical eye, everything looks sus. And I can't think of anything other than sus, because her demeanor there, her, looking around. I personally went there. She wasn't looking to pay her tab. You pay your tab right on the table. If she asked to pay her tab, they would refer you to paying your tab on the table. So I just don't understand that aspect of it, because their drinks were full, their silverware was there, they had everything they needed. She had no reason to call a waitress over there. She never asked for anything additional, even when another another waitress had approached. So, or not another waitress, the same waitress, going back by. So why was she so fidgety? Why was she taking these discreet photos of Sebastian there? And why was she constantly looking around all, weird and stuff? For us, that does look a little sus. Now, I have personally moved on from the Texas Roadhouse, and I will circle back if I can find something that lifts my eyebrows. But we've reviewed this footage, and even if it does look sus, we can't derive anything from it that can help us move this case, forward in that direction. So we'll have to wait until something else surfaces about, the Texas Roadhouse before me personally start going back down that road. But we definitely understand why people are still very concerned about that footage and why they haven't let it rest yet. Because, even Jen Coffindaffer, which is a retired FBI agent, at the bare minimum thinks that it's definitely suspicious with the body movements and behaviors of Katie at dinner.
Aging him. And just to kind of back up and reiterate, to digest this more, in what you've seen other people looking at them too? Did it seem like they were trying to find each other? Like, is she looking for someone, I wonder? What do you think, Jennifer?
Well, yes, in other footage that I've seen, I haven't released it. It's not for me to release. But I think that there may be some questions now regarding somebody.
OMG. You know what? I mean, this just came to my head. I don't know if this, that's why sometimes watching this stuff and going back, when me and the real Me Too went to the Texas Roadhouse and had dinner, okay? You know what I was doing? I was doing my body. I guarantee if I was on footage and we compared my footage to her footage, I would look the exact same way. Because I was looking around that restaurant. But you know what was weird? I was looking around for that restaurant for cameras. I was trying to identify where the cameras were because we were trying to identify where Katie and Sebastian had sat while we were there eating dinner. I couldn't figure it out, but I definitely was looking around trying to figure out where all the cameras were that could have taken the footage. I mean, why not? I'm there for dinner. That just came to my mind. I don't know why that just came to my mind, but that just came to my mind. I mean, she's looking around for something. Could she have been trying to see if there were any interior cameras? Maybe. I don't know.
Be possibly looking at them, certainly not acting appropriate. And I'm sure that will be released soon. And when you put it in conjunction with how Katie Proudfoot is acting, it just adds up to something that doesn't make a lot of logical sense.
Sure. Jennifer, this has me wondering, did he even go back to the house? Do we have any confirmation that he ever made it back to the house? Because he's said to have, he's reported missing from the house, supposedly in the middle of the night, wanders off. And
you guys all know my assessment. It was in my intro coming into this show this morning.
Now I'm just wondering about that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, please.
Well, I think, unfortunately, we're so reliant on what Katie Proudfoot has to say. She's the last person to see him. She's the only one with him. She's the one that makes the report. We're so reliant on that. And I've also found it very interesting.
She says she's the one that made the report. I think that, and technically she is the one that made the report. She was the one that met with law enforcement. You have to be there personally to make the report. So that might be, now I'm not sure if this is the specific, question related to the 911 call, but she didn't say she made the call. She said she's the one that made the report, which she's the one that did meet with the officers and was the one that actually made the report. No, she was the only one that made the actual missing person report for Sebastian. Just to clarify that, but we're going to keep listening.
That she works for a video recording company and meaning, home security type company. And yet we have no home security footage, at least that we know of Sebastian Rogers coming, going. There's, very little, let me say. And I've always found that very much to be an oxymoron, Julie.
So there you guys have that. So now we're going to get into more of the topic of conversation. So we're going to see like 3 videos, and I probably should, no, 2 videos, and they're short videos. They're Matt's, and let me put his little banner up there. Where is it? There he is. So he was the one that I was kind of, stalking today and last night and going through all of his videos that he has on Sebastian Rogers. He's been, he has the clips, just like Hindsight 2002 has a lot of the clips. And so you can go in there and find, the clips that you're looking for. And so I was in there looking at the Sebastian, what did we miss, because again, it's going back to the beginning. And the video that I was searching for was one of the videos that he had done on April 25th, which wasn't too long ago, which is probably what brought it, what was ringing in my head is this video that I had forgotten that he had done, but we weren't looking at it in context. And I think we need to look at it in context. But before we do, we're going to build up to that point. So here's one that was after the one that I'm going to be presenting.
By Katie Proudfoot chooses not to go on panels, chooses not to advocate for her son, chooses not to talk about the events that took place on the night of February 25th, 2024 into February 26th, 2024. Because if she was talking as much as Chris, there's no way that both of these two would still be free. Amongst a ton of other things that Chris Proudfoot has said in this investigation, he also said something to the effect of, we need to focus on Sebastian and not focus on who did this.
We want correct information out there. We don't want false information. Instead of just reporting, kept insinuating stuff, which in itself is a problem. And it drew the focus away from Sebastian and started focusing more on, who did it? Well, these people are, and that was a problem.
Why would a stepfather to a missing child who claims that he wants to find his stepson say something like this? In addition to focusing on Sebastian, we also need to heavily focus on the who, the what, the where, the why, the how. So why he is trying to say that we need to just focus on Sebastian and not the perpetrator here is just mind-blowing to me. It's just another example that he has something to likely hide. It also seems like an attempt to get people to stop talking about he and Katie's potential involvement in Sebastian's disappearance. What do you guys think of this? Let me know in the comments.
So brings up a valid point, does it not? That's why I like him. He brings up very valid points. I know. I agree with you. Where is Summer? But he makes himself relevant, right? He wants the appearance of being irrelevant, but how can he be irrelevant if his timeline and his alibi is the only one that can't be known to the public? He's saying on one hand that he has nothing to do with it. I was 3.5 hours away. Well, what were you doing? I can't tell you. Why? Law enforcement. But Katie's given her alibi. Seth's given his alibi. Why at this point would it matter about yours if you're 3.5 hours away? Because they told me not to. It's important to the case. So if it's important to the case, then it's important to the case, right? His whereabouts are important and directly tied to the case, because if they weren't, law enforcement wouldn't give a squat, nor would Chris, about letting people know. I mean, it took us a year to find out the last time he was home was April 2nd, which we find a little odd since their anniversary was April 4th, or excuse me, what's Valentine's? February, or excuse me, not April, February. That's the misspeak I talk about that does happen. I'm saying February and I'm saying April. February 2nd was the last time he was home, but their anniversary is on Valentine's Day, and we never heard that they ever celebrated their anniversary, which would have happened prior to Sebastian disappearing. So they wouldn't have been kind of boggled down with, the disappearance during their anniversary. So why didn't they celebrate it? That's a question, a legitimate question. Here's another one, same day. Oh, no, it's the same one. That's the same one. So that gets me right back to where we need to be. Oops, I just dropped it, didn't I? Oops. Okay, here it is. Here it is. I think this is the right one. Yes, this is the right one. Got it. There it is. Let's listen. Let's open our ears.
So in my video from last week, we were discussing how Chris allegedly told someone that law enforcement told him that Sebastian was likely deceased and that he was north or northwest 15 to 20 miles from Hendersonville, their Stafford Court home. Now, a lot of people were catching on to the fact that Seth Rogers does live in Clarksville, which is northwest of their
I want you guys to hear that again. And we're going to speak about the direct comment. Listen.
So in my video from last week, we were discussing how Chris allegedly told someone that law enforcement told him that Sebastian was likely deceased and that he was north or northwest 15 to 20 miles from Hendersonville, their Stafford Court home. Now,
so he says 15 to 20 miles. I could have sworn it was, I thought he said beyond the 10-mile radius, or 10. I can't remember this is what was said, and I believe the deception detective had it on his channel as well. But Christopher Proudfoot allegedly made a statement that law enforcement told him Sebastian was most likely deceased, and, well, that's not the word he used. He said most likely dead. I'll get to his exact statement in just a second. And that if they were to search, it would be beyond the 10-mile radius to the northwest during an interview. And that was an interview in March 2024. In the interview, Chris says this specifically. They said it's very unlikely that Sebastian is still alive. If they are to search, it would be outside of the 10-mile radius north to northwest. That was the statement made. Now, the key was that drew the public scrutiny is law enforcement had not publicly stated that Sebastian was presumed dead. The specific direction and distance mentioned, north to northwest, past 10 miles, seemed oddly precise. And it raised questions about what was discussed privately between Chris and the investigators, and whether he was paraphrasing, exaggerating, or misrepresenting what he was told. So this is very concerning, because now that we know that this happened in March of 2024, that means it was told to them earlier than they said it out of their mouth. So I want to take you guys to, this is the second Dutch's interview right here. I just lost the audio. Give me just a second. Let me stop it and add it back. This is the Dutch's second interview. This interview was after Sebastian those statements had been uttered out of Chris's mouth. Okay. So that means that they were hyper aware at this point. According now, we have to, for ourselves, decide whether or not we believe this statement was ever made by law enforcement to begin with. But Chris says it was. And if that's the case, now we have to look at Chris and Katie with the lens of they have now been informed by law enforcement their child is most likely dead. Okay? Think about that. You as a parent have just been informed that your child will most likely not ever come home again. Now, whether that's true or not, this is law enforcement telling them according to Chris Proudfoot. So if he's telling the world that law enforcement told him this, wouldn't we expect that emotion to overcome them, whether they're trying to keep that from the public or not? Think about it. If law enforcement says we don't want to let that information out just yet while we're investigating, even when they would talk about their son, they would still know, and you would assume, we know what assume does, but you would assume that emotion would overcome them just with the knowledge that he is most likely deceased and law enforcement has given you that grim reality. Let's listen to their behavior now in context and in light of that information. Let's see if their behavior appears that law enforcement told them that he's deceased. And we have to think that Chris already thought about it, because even Seth told us that within 2 hours of him arriving at home, he was already talking to Seth about what are we going to do if this goes south. So it was already they were already thinking that this child, at least at that point, could potentially not be here anymore. So now that law enforcement has allegedly informed them, let's listen to their interviews in context with that knowledge.
We FaceTime family while we were eating so he could brag.
Thank you,
that's something he likes to do. And we were laughing and joking on FaceTime and having a good time with that. After breakfast, we got a call to go pick up our niece and go take her to meet up. So we did that. We went and picked her up, and we met her mom at BJ's, and we were there with family members. We come home and put our groceries away, and then a little bit later we went to the bowling alley, a local bowling alley here, and we played games. And then this is just Bubba and I, and we went to dinner, just the two of us, and then come home.
So far, does it sound like a mother that has learned that her son may never come home again? Keep up the great work, BHB. Praying for Sebastian, that Sebastian is found. Thank you, Kim. God bless you. I appreciate that. Let's keep listening. Maybe the emotion, maybe the wave of emotion is going to hit her soon. Let's listen.
He took the trash out because that's his chore. And he come in and he was playing in his room until bedtime. And at bedtime, I told him, I said, hey, Bubba, it's time to go to bed. And he goes, okay, good night, Mama, I love you. And then he said good night to his puppies. And he went to bed.
Okay, and walk me through what happened. You said that you were on a phone call, you were on the couch, and then you went to bed at midnight. Walk me through exactly what transpired during that time before you went to bed at midnight for you.
So, well, my husband, he works out of town a lot. So, we normally sit and talk every evening, and I normally fall asleep on him.
So again, now that we're listening to that interview, we know what this interview says. Now listening to that interview, how do you feel about that in the context that they have been told that their son may not be coming home? They're so focused on trying to dissuade people from focusing on them so much that they're acting abnormal to the information out there. Again, at this point, let me read that statement. They said it's unlikely that Sebastian is still alive. If they were to search, it would be outside the 10-mile radius north to northwest. These interviews are made after that statement was made. I believe this statement was made, it was in and around, I think, close to the time frame of when the lights video was released. Her impression of the way she says Sebastian talks makes me upset. Yeah, I get it. But let's listen to another one. Now, this one we've all heard. We're going to only listen to the first 5 minutes. This one here was, again, after they heard Sebastian is most likely, allegedly coming from law enforcement, is a statement that was stated by Christopher Proudfoot. Now let's look at these interviews in context with that knowledge.
In today's video, I interviewed the mother and stepfather of Sebastian Rogers, a 15-year-old who vanished from Hendersonville, Tennessee on February 26th of 2024. He vanished and hasn't been seen since.
Although he doesn't like to be dirty, it's kind of funny because he also doesn't have awareness, because if you look, he's got chocolate milk on his face because he didn't wipe it off at breakfast. It's funny like that.
Can you recap the overall story of Sebastian's disappearance? Kind of walk through that day.
Sunday, the day before he went missing, we got up and, fun fact, I made breakfast that morning. We had a good time. We were laughing, we were joking. He talked to family on the phone during breakfast to brag.
Morning, Picky.
We went and picked up our niece. Yeah, I got a call and asked if I could go and pick her up, and I did. And so we went and did that. We went to BJ's. Had a good time there. He ate a colossal popcorn. Came home to put groceries away because we bought snacks because, you know, he's 15 and snacks. We went to the bowling alley, and then from there we went to...
You know what, Caroline? I gotta say, let me pull this down just a wee old bit. I gotta say, that KP wasn't crying driving around the neighborhood at all. It's on video. No car window down while driving. You are right. But you know what else I was thinking is now that she, they just videotaped this America's Most Wanted back in the end of March or April, right after the 12-month or 13-month milestone of Sebastian disappearing. I want you to think about this. Katie, and it just dawned on me with this one, when you're talking about that day at, the mob crew shows on his channel, but what about the America's Most Wanted? Wouldn't you anticipate that she would want, or she would just naturally be crying, remembering and reliving that day a year after? A full year, now that she knows that maybe those statements law enforcement told her a year prior to might be true, and she's reliving that day. And we got no emotion when she was driving around in her vehicle that day. No emotion when they were recording her. We've seen people do that, take a news, and they were so emotional they had to go off camera a couple times or say, I'm really sorry, And she was driving around and explaining it so casually now that I'm thinking about it. So she didn't appear to be frantic or crying while she was driving the neighborhood that morning, because we've got a picture of her. And she also wasn't doing it when she was doing the reenactment with the America's Most Wanted the day that they filmed. Smiley's World says, to me, when she was driving, like she was trying to hurry and just do it. Probably. KP also wasn't crying or anything when Ellie showed up either, and neither was CB. You're right. Even with Seth's own account, which I interviewed him myself, he had said something to the effect of, when he walked in there, they were all sitting down, and he kind of just walked in. It didn't seem like anybody. The first thing she did was try to shove a phone in, but she wasn't crying. She wasn't hysterical. Which is funny, because outside of her describing this hysteria that she had for that 911 call, we've never seen it, even though she allegedly has been hysterical since then. I don't know. Interesting. So let's keep listening to this and see if they have any emotion. Again, they've just learned, like this was in within a week of them learning, according to Christopher Proudfoot. This was within a few days or a week of them learning that Sebastian, according to Chris said, according to law enforcement, he is most likely, and he said dead, not deceased, dead. So these two people have been put on notice, allegedly by law enforcement, that Sebastian may not come back home. Let's see if their emotional state appears to go with that statement.
Dinner. Came home. He took out the trash, because that's his chore. He takes the can to the end of the driveway. About 9 o'clock, told him to go to bed. And he's come out of his room where he was playing, and he said, "All right, good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. I love you." And went to bed. He was doing something in his room, because about an hour later I heard some noise, and I was like, "I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep." And about midnight, I got up and I went to
I
bed.
just want to find out, does this, would you think that this body language and behavior is appropriate after learning, or normal after learning that your child is most likely no longer here? See, the reason why I'm pointing all of this out is because it makes you wonder. They were so consumed by trying to prove that they didn't do it, that even when law enforcement told them that this child's most likely not here, they were still so focused on the script and the plan that I don't realize how, on one hand, they're saying that law enforcement, I mean, how cold-hearted can a mom be to learn that her child might be deceased according to what Chris states? Now, again, you've got to, that's whether you believe Chris's statement or not, It makes it very difficult for me to believe anything coming out of his mouth, let alone him saying what law enforcement said that they won't say to the public, but he is. Whatever, right? So it makes it very hard for me to believe anything. But in the grand scheme of things, this is what he said. He said law enforcement said Sebastian, they said it's very unlikely that Sebastian is still alive. Not dead, excuse me. I was wrong. I think there was still another statement that he made that particular statement. This one, they said it's very unlikely he's alive. So mom, during these 2 interviews, had already had law enforcement tell her this. And she had these 2 interviews after learning that huge detail from law enforcement, directly from law enforcement, allegedly. Is this the behavior of a mom learning that her child may never be coming home again? I don't know. All I can say is from my purview, it appears odd. It appears that they're so into this script, this narrative, that even learning that they can't show emotion. I've never seen anything quite like this before. But if we were to believe Chris's statement, that law enforcement believes that Sebastian is not alive, then why is their behavior so blasé? Anyways, all right, guys, thank you for being here this morning. You guys have an amazing Tuesday. God bless each and every one of you. Please keep people in your prayers. We have Melanie going for testing today. Really need your prayers. I know the Turkey Man he's still been recovering from surgeries and loss in the family. We can always keep him in our prayers. I know Sonia is still recovering from the same thing. We've got a lot of people in here that has recently had surgeries, like Medic Biker, that we could be praying for a speedy recovery, and just pray. If you need a prayer, let people know you need a prayer. You don't have to tell us your personal business. We believe in the power of prayer on this channel. So if you need somebody to pray, just say, I need prayers. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. What does it say? And Seth get there. Deanna says, and Seth gets there and talking about other things rather than talking about plans to go find Sebastian. Yeah, I agree. And CP saying crap like, what are you going to do if, this goes south, right? They make themselves appear sus. And it makes you wonder why. And again, this is all courtesy of Matt Thibodeau. If you guys have not seen him, he has a channel here on YouTube. He has a channel over on TikTok. What you guys saw were TikTok clips that he did over there. So please give him a shout out. Please go sub up for him. I really love his work, and he does a lot of different cases, but it's all the cases that we want information on. So it is a perfect fit. So anyways, go hit him up. Go hit Hindsight up. Smiley Story World is in here if you have not subbed up to her channel. We also have Clutch Them Pearls if you have not signed up for his channel, Sweet Misery. Good gracious, we've got a lot of great people over here. Spirit Seeker, Spirit, what is it? Spirit Seeker Squad, Spirit Seeker Squad. I'm sorry. I'm horrible with names. 5D, War Damn Eagle. I mean, there's just so many to list. Mr. and Mrs. E. You know, we're finally getting some really good content creators that are keeping victim focused, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And a lot of upcoming clip channels like The Clipper. The Clipper is really good. If you guys haven't subbed up to The Clipper, that one's coming out. I know that there's just a lot. There's a lot of great channels. We don't have to listen to the garbage of YouTube anymore. We got so many other choices, so many different perspectives from, you know, trained like the Deception Detective and Jennifer Coffindaffer, you know, people that we can really rely on. Is there stuff that's exactly the way it's going to be? No, of course not. They're giving you their perspective. They're giving you their experience. They give you what they believe. They're giving you their opinion. Much like when you go to the doctor with a bunch of ailments and he says, well, it sounds like you have this, right? We know just by checking WebMD for ourselves, it could be a variety of things, right? So they're going to try this out, right? And they're going to say, well, you know, I think this medication would clear this, you know, whatever up, right? It's all suggested. If you told the doctor that, no, you don't really want that medication, but thanks for letting him, that's your choice, right? So they're just looking at the situation saying that, based on their experience, they believe it's this. And so I really value it. But it's so funny, like everybody wants them to be exact. And it's like if one thing is off, right? It's like, well, they didn't give us that side of it. It's like, so they're going on what they believe is most probable. There's always going to be an outlier here or an outlier there. But they hone in on the stupidest, most petty part that's incorrect versus the overall conversation, which was spot on, right? And so I really do appreciate all the people here. Even Emily Baker, she goes up there all the time. She has thousands of people in her chat, and there's things that she gives her opinion of what she believes happened. I mean, it happens that way, right? But we love the perspective. We love the perspective. So I really do appreciate that. You guys have so much more to watch nowadays. Go out there and pick up good stuff. Fill your body with good information, not drama and stuff that makes your internals sick. Okay, and it does. It gunks you up. It makes when you have poison in your body. Trust me, whether you believe it or not. If you get upset because of somebody else, you upset somebody else's day. Somewhere along your day, you're going to upset somebody else. Now, if you filled yourself up with good stuff and was happy, you'd fill the next person up with happiness, not upsetness. I'm just saying. Be happy. Don't be sad. Don't be miserable. Love you. Bye.